Good morning, it's Friday, it's about 9 o'clock in the morning. It is the 8th day of April 2022. It is 70 degrees and sunny here at Site B. I am your guide to all the tabletop role-playing game news, weather, sports, and general internet nonsense that is known far and wide as the OGGM. The O stands for original, the G stands for gangster, the G stands for good, and the M, well, I guess the M now stands for mind. So OGGM, because, master's now a bad word. We addressed that last night on my live stream that we did with Unscripted Unchained DM Bloodworth. Check it out. There's links down below. Thanks, DM Bloodworth, for inviting me to join you. I don't know if we resolved anything regarding safety tools and this new thing about wanting to change the word master, other than it's dumb. All right, so is there anything going on in the world of tabletop role-playing since we last spoke? We have a few minor stories, nothing major, and we have a list! We haven't done a list in a couple days, so let's take a look at the Friday tabletop role-playing game news. Now, I don't know why this is news in relations to tabletop role-playing games, but the Ezra Miller Flash thing seems to be it. I don't know why that's on tabletop role-playing game news sites, but I guess we're really running out of things to talk about. Convention season hasn't started yet, so yeah. Ezra Miller, Flash, he got into trouble a couple years ago, and then they were talking about using him for the Flash movie. He showed up on the TV show for like 5 seconds. Was it last year? And then he went and got himself in trouble again. Now there's like a restraining order against him, and he's being all emo and goth, and the studio's wondering maybe we should recast him since this keeps happening. I don't know. Does anybody care? I mean, yeah, Ezra Miller, get your act under control. I don't know. Grant Gustin still kind of seems to be just knocking it out of the park as the Flash, at least the early seasons. All right, so Magic the Gathering has a new expansion out called the Streets of New Capenna, C-A-P-E-N-N-A, Capenna. I don't know where old Capenna was. Was that part of Ravinica or Theros? Because, yeah, I'm a little out of touch with Magic, but if there's a Streets of New Capenna, then where is old Capenna? Anyways, apparently this is a 1920s gangster-themed Magic set with each color representing one of the crime families that are fighting for control. Yeah, that sounds a lot like Ravinica, actually. Each color representing a family or faction fighting for control of the city. Yeah. Are you running out of ideas? Because you did a cyberpunk Magic the Gathering theme. Now you're basically doing Ravinica again. You're just calling it something else, unless this is Ravinica 2022. Your next set is Dominia, and your set after that is the Brothers War. So, yeah, I guess when you run out of ideas for new stuff, just repurpose the old stuff, Magic. Yeah, well, it's going to sell, so what am I? It's not like they're going to lose any money. Speaking of money and tabletop role-playing game, you know who's in the news a lot this week? Paizo! So Paizo announced that they were jumping back on the D&D bandwagon. This shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody who actually knows what's going on, because that's how Paizo started. Paizo started making this product for Wizards of the Coast. Shackled City and Rise of the Rune Lords were both D&D adventures, first and foremost, back in the early days of 3 and the beginnings of the OGL. Paizo made the award-winning Rise of the Rune Lords, originally for Dungeons & Dragons, but then the whole kerfuffle between Wizards of the Coast and Paizo happened, and Paizo went off and created Pathfinder, which knocked Wizards of the Coast to the curb for a couple years. Paizo Pathfinder First Edition being the number one role-playing game for 3 or 4 years until 5th came out. Paizo's kind of dropped the ball in competing with them. They sort of focused more on Starfinder, which, by the way, Starfinder is excellent. I don't think it gets enough good press because it really is a good game with lots of good ideas. Then Pathfinder 2 came out. It's, people who have played it says it's good. I haven't played it yet. I've heard mixed reviews, generally okay, you know, not like, oh, this is amazing. It's like, yeah, it's good, it's fun, I enjoy it, kind of stuff. But now they're coming back to 5e, which shouldn't come as any surprise to anybody. I know somebody was going around going like, oh, well, Wizards of the Coast needs to address this because Paizo is making a third-party 5e product. And no, Wizards of the Coast really has no reason to address it whatsoever unless Paizo actually becomes a threat to them, which I kind of hope they will. I mean, let's not forget, Pathfinder is currently the number 2 selling role-playing game in the United States, and Dungeons & Dragons 5e sales are down. Dungeons & Dragons 5e sales are down. Now, how do I know this? People are like, no, they're not. Well, let's not forget that I have Hasbro stock, so every morning I know whether my Hasbro stock has gone up or gone down, and my Hasbro stock is going down. So, yeah, D&D 5. Whatever is losing money. There have been no sales of Strixhaven, no sales of Mordecaians. In fact, Mordecaians has already been forgotten. And there's no pre-orders for Radiant Citadel yet. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if Paizo can be a serious competitor to Wizards of the Coast again. So let's take a look and hope that the Vault of the Abomination Lords 5e conversion that they're doing might lead to them doing other adventure paths converted to 5e. Could you imagine Giant Slayer converted to 5e as competition to Storm King? Or if Kingmaker was converted to 5e? Oh my god, everybody and their dog would be running out to get Kingmaker. Kingmaker's amazing. Or some of the other ones. I mean, you know, not every AP was great, but even the bad ones were good. And let's face it, most of the third-party 5e stuff right now is better than the stuff Wizards of the Coast is putting out for 5e. I will argue, you know, that as you've heard me say many times before, Tomb of Annihilation is the most D&D adventure that they've made, and Radiant Citadel is probably going to be the perfect setting for what Wizards of the Coast thinks people want from 5e. That said, I know there are better versions of the idea of Tomb of Annihilation out there than Tomb of Annihilation, like the Thousand Sandwich 5e stuff. I mean, the Thousand Island 5e stuff. There's a lot of, you know, the Jungle Island pirate dinosaur infested mysterious civilizations idea has been done for 5e by third parties, and those are better than Tomb of Annihilation, and Tomb of Annihilation is excellent up until you get to the end, but just the whole idea of that island is great. So, and Radiant Citadel, the idea of Radiant Citadel, there's been plenty of 5e takes on the Spelljammer Light as well from third parties, and those are all as good or better than whatever we're going to get from Radiant Citadel. And already Radiant Citadel is starting to get some reviews that are less than exciting, and it isn't even out yet. Yeah, so that's about it for news. Paizo coming back, and Magic the Gathering has a new set that's based upon 1920s gangs, crime families. List time! Let's end Friday with a silly list. Every edition of Dungeons & Dragons and what it does best. Every edition of Dungeons & Dragons and what it does best. Number 7. The original Dungeons & Dragons forged a new path. The original Dungeons & Dragons forged a new path. If you mean it presented an idea that really didn't exist before that, even though there's some argument as to whether it actually did or did not, or if D&D really was the first role-playing game. I'm not going to get into that, but it is out there. There are people who say there was a role-playing game before that. There are people who are saying that there's actually role-playing going back to, like, you know, the 1800s. There are people saying that Tekkamel actually was before D&D, and, you know, Blackmore was actually first, and whatever. I don't know. The first published was Dungeons & Dragons that we know of, and it forged a new path. Okay, I'll agree with that. Number 6, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons showed the game's potential. Okay, sure. Yeah, I agree with that. Basic D&D guided the flow every bit of the game. So are we talking about BX? I guess we're talking about BX. Basic guided the flow of every bit of the game. Well, the red box, I guess, is what they're talking about, making it accessible. I don't really know what they mean by that one. It guided the flow of every bit of the game. I guess it just helped make, they're saying it helped make D&D more approachable with the red box and the other stuff that Basic did. At number 5, is Basic more important than AD&D? I don't know. Second edition created and codified many beloved settings. So this is Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition, created and codified many beloved settings. Well, if you're talking about just the Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance, yeah. Plus Planescape, Spelljammer, all came out around that time. So, yeah. 3rd edition prioritized player option and character creation. 3rd edition prioritized player options and character creations. If you're reading the Fleet, the Feet Glut, and all the, literally the guy's got a picture of like 100 splat books. All the splat books and all the things we hated about 3rd. So you're saying that's more important? No, I'm going to disagree with that one. 3rd was the beginning of the, oh my God, what are you doing? 4th edition was the epitome of tactical combat. And you say 4th edition is more important than 3rd edition and more important than AD&D. Okay, 4th edition was not Dungeons & Dragons. 4th edition was Eberron, the role-playing game. 4th edition on paper probably could have worked, but everything Wizards of the Coast did with 4th edition from day one to the final nail in the coffin of ending 4th edition was just stupid. It's like they wanted 4th edition to fail. Really, if you just look at it from an outsider's point of view, and every step they took with 4th edition was just so self-destructive and so bad that it never had a chance. Eberron, the role-playing game, probably could have worked, but no, D&D 4th, it never got a chance. It never got a chance to show whether it actually was a good idea or not, because everything Wizards of the Coast did, every choice they made in regards to 4th edition, from the very first to the very last, was just bad. So no, I would not rate 4th edition number 2. And number 1, 5th edition brings together the best of D&D heritage. No, it does not, because 5th edition has gone out of its way to say ignore D&D's heritage until the past couple weeks. Anything before 5th edition didn't exist, and we're kicking everything Gary made to the curb. So no, 5th edition did not bring together the best. It is not number 1. So what is wrong with this list? Well, there's more than 7 editions. Even though Wizards of the Coast calls 5e the 5th edition, it's not 5th edition. Depending upon which way you look at it, there's either 12 or 21 editions of Dungeons & Dragons. There's either 12 or 21 editions of Dungeons & Dragons. Not 5, not 7, bare minimum. You could argue that there's 10. Some argue that there's 12. Some argue that there's 21 versions of Dungeons & Dragons. But I think we all agree that there's more than 5 editions of Dungeons & Dragons. There's more than 5 points in the Dungeons & Dragons timeline where there was enough differences that you could say, yeah, this is a new or different edition of the game. 2, you're ignoring a lot of shit. 3, 5th edition brings together the best of D&D heritage. No, it does not. All it did was, D&D is now a mainstream phenomenon. That has nothing to do with 5th edition. That has to do everything to do with Critical Role and D&D being on TV. 5th edition just happened to be the edition they were using, but one has nothing to do with the other. So yeah, no, I don't agree with you that number 1 is 5th edition. Number 2, 4th edition. Yeah, no, I don't agree with that. Number 3, 3rd edition. No, I don't agree with that. 2nd edition being the 4th most important. Probably. Actually, I would move 2nd edition further down the list. I would say it's 3 or 2 in regards to how important and what it did. Basic guided the flow of every bit of the game. I don't even know what you mean by that, other than it made, the red box kind of made D&D more approachable, I guess, at the time. I don't know. I don't really... Advanced Dungeons & Dragons showed the game's potential. Sure, yeah. I mean, just going, what each edition did best. Original D&D introduced us to the hobby. It should probably be number one. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, no. First, and plus, I think your order is wrong. Yeah, these lists... I always get the feeling these lists are written by people who actually don't know anything about the game. Like the guy who said the whole thing about D&D is, carrot cake yesterday actually didn't really know anything about it. And he was referencing an article that he obviously didn't read. Because if you read the actual article / look at the actual vlog post that the guy made comparing, the OSR to carrot cake, one of his main topics was that Wizards of the Coast needs to learn from the OSR. The guy wasn't saying the OSR was a bad thing. The guy was saying the OSR is a good thing, and obviously this guy just saw, OSR bad and went and made a thing about it without actually researching it. And that just seems to be common. These people make these lists. These people go after the OSR. These people say all these wonderful things about D&D 5e. But if you look at the list and you listen to what they say, it's obvious that they don't actually know anything about 5th edition or the hobby. I mean, we all know I'm not the best fan of 5e, but at least I try and do my research, and if I find out I did something or said something wrong, I'll go back and fix it, I'm the first to admit, hey, I made a mistake. So, yeah. Anyways, you're probably tired of listening to my voice, and obviously there really isn't nothing going on in the gaming news today, so I'll leave you. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. We'll be back. Till then, get off of my land, you whatever the hell. Like, what is this? Is this an eagle with a box? What is this like Amazon? Are they delivering a box? Is that what this is? I don't even know. Get off my land.